The following program is a podcast1.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
We're just days away, I hope, from keeping that promise and delivering a truly amazing victory for American families. We want to give you, the American people, a giant tax cut for Christmas. And when I say giant, I mean giant.
Are you ready to tell Mitch McConnell no vote on the Republican tax scam until Doug Jones takes his seat in the Senate? No vote! No!
They call her Pocahontas.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Well, the Republicans are moving forward on tax reform, and it's going to pass. And it's not everything that everybody wants, obviously. But it will, without a doubt, assist the already growing American economy. It'll mean that the U.S. economy continues to grow and expand. It'll simplify things, certainly for businesses. It won't do enough, of course, for individuals in many regards, especially those who are in high-tax states. It should be a lot simpler. But all in all, I got to say, I think this is good news. And the Democrats hate good news. They do not want any good news to come out of this White House. Now, understand this, and we'll get into the latest from the merry band of Mueller prosecutors. They have, since the day after the election, worked hammer and tong to undo the results of the election. It doesn't, I mean, the GDP could be up at 4.5%, and they would say Trump is screwing things up. I mean, none of that matters. The facts of what's happening on the ground with the economy, they don't matter. The fact that illegal border crossings are down, that doesn't matter. The fact that consumer confidence is up, that doesn't matter. None of this matters to the Democrats. What matters to them is that they believe they have so hobbled this president with endless investigations and a limitless budget at the special counsel's office. I don't even think we really know how many people are working over there. We certainly don't know what their real partisan motivations are, at least for all the staff. We only know what we know about Strzok, but I'm sure there's a lot more out there. You know there is. But they wanted to undo the election results, and they're going to do it by hook or by crook. In their mind, they're going to do it. And if they can keep the voters on edge or grumpy or in a sour mood, they know that much like it happened in 2010, after Barack Obama comes into office, they'll wipe out the Republicans. This is the goal. They want to wipe out the Republican Party in 2010. So our question today, and excuse my voice because I'm under the weather, our question is, can they be successful if the Republicans remain, at least on the big issues, unified? And this is where we have to be super smart. There are a lot of folks out there who want to spend all their time going after Mitch McConnell. And I understand that because the establishment has screwed up a lot of things, and they certainly they certainly could have done a lot better in how they handled issue after issue, from foreign policy to the economy. I get that. But right now, the main focus should be keeping the party as unified as possible, at least on the big issues. And then that narrative carries you through to the new year and starts filtering down to the average voter out there. So the chaos isn't so heavy day in and day out. I do think, I quoted Matt Drudge last night in my angle. This was a B block, actually, to be specific. And Drudge said, it's just all too much. People are just, they're weary. Look, I do this for a living, and I get weary of it. And when I say that, I mean fighting everyone at once. We can't fight everybody at once. It's not possible. You can't take on and destroy the GOP Senate Majority Leader and take on the Alabama Senate race, and then take on the chamber and take on the entire business community, the entire media apparatus as a governing strategy. I mean, Trump could do it. Trump could actually do this as a candidate because he had a unique skill set. I mean, he was obviously self-funded. He had been through the media fire in New York. He understood what that white-hot spotlight was all about, and he was fearless. And he also really homed in on a couple of the issues that had been ignored. And I say deep six by the establishment cabal, both on trade and immigration especially. On China, on what NAFTA had done to our economy, obviously the open borders regime. He hammered that. And also political correctness. Okay, so he had that unique ability. Very few people have that ability. Very few people can govern through the chaos of the relentless and constant attacks. The media now, by centering on the Mueller investigation, so it's day in and day out. Well, it's not collusion now, it's something else. And then it'll be something else after that. And then they'll hire a couple other people to replace the other people. The media believe that even with a really booming economy, they can keep the voters grumpy. So it's incumbent upon the Republicans to switch that narrative. So happy days are here again. Happiness has to be part of what we're pursuing here. I mean, the pursuit of happiness. You need happier voters. And I do think Trump understands that. I do think his instinct is to want to bring people together. And I know that seems maybe counterintuitive because of the types of tweets sometimes he sends out. I get why people would think that. But look, it was Donald Trump the other day who said, I wanted to bring both sides together on a lot of these issues. I had the Democrats over for health care reform. We came over to the White House. We met together. I worked with them on raising the debt ceiling on a temporary basis for 3 months. So we could hammer through some of these issues, work together on some of these issues. And I know he's tough, so when Gillibrand comes after him, he's going to go after her and all that. But I believe that it is time for the Republicans, especially the president, as hard as it is, and I understand how hard it is, given the unfairness, the rank unfairness of this investigation, keep your eye on the prize. Optimism, the American people, the American founding, our framers want more from us, our history demands more of us. We can get through this together. Whatever happens to me, if I'm the president, I'm like, hey, whatever happens to me, I'm going to leave this place better off for you. I'm going to make sure that this government is more efficient. Where I can pare it down, I pare it down. And if I have to do it unilaterally through regulatory moves, deregulatory moves, I'm going to do that. But I'm going to leave this government better off for you, returning more power to you by the time I leave. And I know they all want to undo the election, but my goal is to make your life better. And the cacophony of critics in the background and the Mueller team, and they're pouring over their, okay, they're going to do what they're going to do. But let me tell you what I'm focused on, you. This is about your life, your freedom. This is about keeping this country a sovereign and independent force. And this is about ensuring that the government does not get so big and so unaccountable that it ends up denigrating what we understood to be a representative democracy and demeaning the true understanding of freedom. If I'm the president, that's all I'm doing. Morning, noon, and night, it's all about the American people. And I do think he gets that. He understands you need happy voters going into 2018. I did an Ingraham angle monologue on this weeks ago. We need happy voters. The polls, again, take them with a grain of salt, but all of them look bad right now. They look bad for the Republican brand. They're not good for the Democrat brand either. But they will improve and they will get better if the party itself, and I know a lot of people in the party don't like Trump, but they want to win. They don't want to lose the Senate and they don't want to lose the House. They do not want to be thrown into that turmoil again of being in the minority. They don't want that. So the president has to keep this in mind. McConnell has to keep it in mind, and Paul Ryan have to keep it in mind. Stay on the same page on the big issues. You're going to disagree on the ins and outs of DACA, and all, but on the huge issues, the big ones, you need to stay together. Rule of law. No amnesty for nothing. You're not giving amnesty to 800,000 people for nothing. You're going to end chain migration. You're going to end the visa lottery system. You're going to have E-Verify. You're going to build the wall. You're going to keep paring down these regulations. You're going to ensure that NAFTA gets renegotiated, because if NAFTA, what I also have to say, I was thinking about this. If these people get their way, if some of these never-Trumpers get their way, and a lot of them just want him out, they'd rather have a Democrat in 2020. They'd rather have Gillibrand or something like that. They better think about this. If Trump goes down, either before 2020 or in 2020, the Republicans go down. Let's say the Republicans lose the House or the Senate in 2018. You understand that NAFTA is gone. There is no NAFTA after that, because there's going to be no incentive to renegotiate NAFTA. The Democrats, most of the Democrats, they had problems with NAFTA from the beginning. A lot of these populist Democrats, maybe not like Nancy Pelosi, but the big movement in the party, in the Democrat Party, is not with NAFTA. So these things that the business community wants, they want NAFTA to be renegotiated. They better start kicking some real money into these races. And we better start seeing a real commitment to push the president's agenda, which is working. 855-40-LAURA. Do you all agree that this is time for happy voters? This is time for the Republican Party to be on the same page on the big issues going into the new year. Pass tax reform, put a happy face on it, wrap it up in a bow, and send it over to the White House. Have him sign it and move forward in 2018 with a new sense of a new sense of optimism and a positive approach to governance. Tough when you need to be, forthright, always focused on the American people. That's my mantra. That's what I'm going to say 24/7, because that's what I believe. 855-40-LAURA. We're going to get to all of this more when we come back. We have a great show on tap. Victor Davis Hanson's going to join us. He's a phenomenal columnist and thinker about all things foreign policy and domestic related. We'll chat with him. Roger Stone, that should be fun. Jim Jordan, who can't find a suit jacket, and a lot more. 855-40-LAURA. Remember, Food for the Poor, our great friends in philanthropy. All of you who give, especially at the end of the year, I want you to step up with me. I already opened my wallet, big league, and I want you to open yours. Help the children. I look at these photos that I took of Maria and the people who traveled with us down to Guatemala, and it is a heartbreaker. And when you see a child with a bowl of hot soup and some pieces of chicken in it and maybe a few vegetables, and they get a piece of fruit afterward, that's their one meal a day, and you see how grateful they are for one bowl of food that's hot, a hot meal with some protein, and you think, I could have provided that for a child and I didn't do it. My friends, put aside politics for a moment. That is what we are supposed to do here on this earth. Food for the poor. Looking for $10, $2,500 donors. You're going to get a box of my best books, of course, the newest book, Billionaire at the Barricades, signed by me, a special note from me. And you get the credit with the big guy upstairs. Then the $25,000 donors, you get to host the last hour of the Laura Ingraham Show with me. We already have one anonymous donor, but we need you to step up today. We're going to be making this pitch to you, and I mean it. I need your help. Food for the Poor. Go to our LauraIngraham.com banner or to LifeSet, and you can give through there. 855-40-LAURA. Stay with us. Thanks to my wonderful sponsors and your support, I'm glad to say that we can provide this podcast at no cost to you at all. As a loyal listener of my program, please consider testing our sponsors because they're the ones who actually cover the cost to produce this daily show. So if you're a dog lover like I am, how about giving your dog, your best friend, a fresh, healthy, and nutritious diet? When dogs eat well, they live longer and happier lives. I'm here to tell you about NomNomNow.com, which cooks the world's best dog food. It's made fresh in the USA and delivered right to your door every week. Nom Nom Now's customized recipes cook fresh in our kitchen, delivering healthy nutrition you can actually see. Switch to Nom Nom Now and your dog will have more energy, a shinier, softer coat, and a longer, better life. Nom Nom Now really is the best food for your best friend. And right now you can save 50% on your first 2 orders of fresh, healthy dog food when you use my code Laura at NomNomNow.com. That's code Laura and save 50% on your first 2 orders. NomNom now.com. And code word LAURA.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel.
How seriously should people take this smear campaign against Robert Mueller?
Well, extremely seriously. If anything, it's been building over time to what feels like is approaching a crescendo. And the big question is, what exactly is the goal here? Is it to lay the groundwork for President Trump to potentially fire Mueller? Or is this an attempt to taint the jury pool?
Michael Crowley. Where is he from? New Republic? Politico. I think people are exhausted of this whole thing. The problem here for the Democrats is this is all they have. The problem for the Republicans is they can't seem to get out of the way of this. And the Democrats, I said this last night on Fox, but what do they have as a positive agenda for the country? I would turn this all around on them. And I think it can be done and without all that much effort. Okay, you have Mueller. You're banking it all on Mueller and old accusers. So they got the special investigator, special prosecutor, as tainted as it is. The whole office is. We know that. We'll be talking about more of that tonight on the Ingraham angle. They have that, and they have the accusers. And, okay, now what? Now what do you have? Okay, you have political correctness that you've steeped yourselves in. You have the abortion cabal. You have identity politics. You have LGBTQRST folks who are pouring money into race. Okay, all right, great. I assume LGBT people also want a good economy, no? I would assume that they want entrepreneurs to flourish and businesses to be able to run and thrive and expand and add more employees? No? Do they not want that too? I think so. Do they want more wars? I don't see how that helps. Does the left want more trade deals that hollow out manufacturing in the middle of the country? No, in fact, they agree with Donald Trump. Maybe not on every aspect of trade, but on critical parts of it, they absolutely do. So I would turn the tables on the Democrats and say, okay, we understand Mueller's going forward. We're not even talking about this right now, except we will bring up the conflicts as they arise because it's clear, because we think the American people have a right to know. But we're actually going to focus on the American people. We suggest you do the same. It's just a suggestion, because they're the guys paying the bills here. Victor Davis Hanson up next.
The duck of the day.
Did the FBI pay for the dossier?
I'm not in position to answer that question, Congressman.
Do you know the answer to the question?
That is, I believe I know the answer, but the Intelligence Committee is the appropriate committee to make that.
That is not true. We have oversight over your department and the FBI, and whether public funds were spent on a dossier, that is not something that's classified. We have every right to that information.
Well, implicitly, we understand that they did pay for the dossier. That's fairly obvious in the way Rosenstein answered that question. Otherwise, he would have said emphatically no. The Deputy Attorney General, his testimony yesterday at the House Intel Committee. This is what happens when you have an unaccountable group of lawyers investigating the executive branch from within the executive branch. They have a limitless budget. They can stay in business as long as they want. They don't really, as you can see, they don't really have any real oversight. Congress doesn't really have any oversight. In fact, members of Congress want to further insulate the special counsel from any type of real accountability. And they spent months building up the reputation of Bob Mueller like he should be on Mount Rushmore or something. Joining us now, Victor Davis Hanson. I'm delighted he's with us, columnist extraordinaire, author, historian. VDH, how are you doing, my friend? Good to talk to you. What did you make of this latest go-round with the deputy AG who had this brilliant idea of appointing a special counsel to investigate this supposed Russian collusion?
What worries me is that when we hear all this information that Strzok and Page, et cetera, were let go in August and September because they exchanged these texts with McCabe, and now we hear that they actually discussed a way of blocking Trump's election. That was not just a secret little meeting. That was pretty much common knowledge that people felt that way. So when Mueller had picked this team, if you go back and look at what Vox and what the Daily Beast were saying, they were already calling this team, before they ever said a word, the Dream Team, Mueller's Army, the All-Stars. So what I'm getting at is there was a general perception by Mueller that there were people that he wanted to bring on board that had overt anti-Trump feelings. And so I can't believe that he was suddenly shocked that in August and September somebody came to him and said, hey, we've got written information that some of your team was actually plotting during the election. I just don't believe that. I think there was a general perception that almost everybody that he brought in, those 15 or 16 lawyers, were known for people who did not like Donald Trump. I mean, almost every one of them that we know about, whether it's Ben Rhodes' personal lawyer or whether it's the wife of someone, Mr. Orr, who was working on Russian information with the Steele dossier people. So the whole thing is corrupt. And if you wanted to think, how would you create a coup to stop a particular candidate from winning the election and then to subvert him, you couldn't really dream this up.
Well, I think that it is so inadvisable for a group of partisans with a political axe to grind to be able to be burrowed into the U.S. government with no accountability. This guy was removed, but he never should have been part of the investigation. And we have others who are still there who work for the Clintons. So you have Obama and Clinton devotees who despise President Trump working day and night to undo the presidential election. I don't know anybody in their right mind who believes that like Donnie Trump Jr. and Eric Trump and Ivanka and the president were like conspiring with the KGB to ensure that Hillary didn't win the election. Like nobody believes that, Victor. Nobody.
No, I think most people are starting to believe something that's quite frightening, to tell you the truth, and that is that Hillary purchased a opposition research on Donald Trump that had Russian input with some discredited operatives, and then to get currency for that dossier and to get it out into the public domain, they went to the FBI, and the FBI put its imprimatur on it, and then that was used probably for a FISA court order by some of the people who may now be investigating Donald Trump. And then once that happened, they were surveilling people they alleged had evidence from this dossier that were colluding, which was false. And then those names that came up in documents were deliberately unmasked and leaked. If you go back and look at the media record from September and October. This is Washington Post, New York Times. There's all sorts of stories that say, sources say, it is reported that members of the Trump team had colluded with Russia right before the election. And I think that's what the real story is. Did people in the FBI use a phony document supplied to them by a political campaign to engineer or leverage a court order that allowed them to surveil private American citizens with the intent, apparently by some, whether it was Susan Rice or Ben Rhodes or John Brennan or Samantha Power, to unmask those names and then to have them leaked to the press before the election and after the election to impede the work of the transition administration. That's what we're really talking about. We haven't seen that before in recent American history. And this collusion stuff is the detritus from this phony dossier. I think that we're going to learn that most of the rumors about the Trump collusion in some way or form came from the rumors or the innuendo in this one particular dossier. And that gave them an excuse to go out and find. They have the person, so they found the crime, as so to speak, in the Soviet sense. And
well, that
nobody's upset about this.
Right. I mean, the collusion that exists is in the office of the special counsel, working with the FBI, working with other members of the FBI to come up with an insurance policy to remove Trump from office. That, to me, there is collusion. That's collusion.
No, there is. Or collusion's a euphemism. It could be. I'm not a conspiracy nut, but there was some effort on the part of these people to stop Donald Trump's election, and they felt that they had a higher duty. When someone says, "I think you were put in this position to do what you're doing," that's a sort of a messianic complex that they've been anointed by some higher power to stop the essential evil of Donald Trump from infecting the land. And these are civil servants, and these are professionals in the FBI. And they're working with a particular political campaign. In fact, the background of the majority that we know about, whether it's their law practice prior to becoming an FBI or whether it's their wife's campaign in Virginia, almost every one of them have the type of conflict of interest that nobody would allow. And just because they're part of a special investigatory team doesn't mean that they're exempt from conflict of interest. They're doing no more than if Jeff Sessions had appointed 15 Republicans and said, well, you know what, they're going to be transparent, the media can see if they're biased. It doesn't really matter that they were big contributors to the Trump campaign. It really doesn't matter that their wives were running for Republican offices. It really doesn't matter that they used to have clients like Corey Wendlingowski or something. It doesn't really matter. And that's what we're being told to accept. And that's just not acceptable. And the idea that Mueller didn't know about this, the people he was bringing on from particular Washington law firms, and then suddenly, in September, he said, oh my gosh, there's a paper trail. These people are doing something I never imagined they would do. That's just too hard to believe.
A former independent counsel, Michael Zeldin, was on CNN, Victor, and he made this point. Let's listen.
People are entitled under the First Amendment to have opinions. If there's no evidence that those opinions are biasing the outcome of their investigation, that's so. And that's the way Rosenstein sees it, and he says he's talking to Mueller about that, and that if he finds there's a need for removal, as he did in the case of the FBI agent. Mueller removed this guy for appearance problems, that they'll do the same thing with any other person.
Your reaction to that? People in Starr's independent counsel office were former Bush employees as well.
Yeah, that's not true. He didn't remove them because there were transparency or conflict. He secretly removed them, and then his office deliberately misled the nation when he didn't connect the two removals to each other. Nobody knew that they were having an affair, and they were texting. And they were texting about trying to stop the Trump presidency. They were removed we were told, and Ms. Page is because of a natural end of a tenure that was a temporary assignment. Nobody said in Mueller's office, we have removed two people because there were conflict of interest, and they were exchanging texts in a way that threatened, we felt, the integrity of this investigation. They didn't say why they were removed. So all of us were under the impression that they were removed because this was an annual rotation of their tenure. So it was a deliberate attempt by that office to suppress the real reasons that they were moved, because they understood that if they told us in that period, this autumn, then people would have lost confidence in the investigation, or they would have learned that the investigation was headed in the wrong direction, or that it was biased. So this idea that he removed them, no, he was forced to remove them, and then he deliberately suppressed the reason why he removed them.
Right.
And he didn't tell people that the two removals were connected. And he did that intentionally because he knew why they were removed. And the only reason that we know today is not because in a fit of transparency he wanted to announce it post facto, is because it had leaked out because of a private lawsuit to demand the release of those documents. That's the only reason today, while he's being praised for removing them. Nobody said, in September, oh my gosh, Bob Mueller's a great guy because he just removed two people. We didn't know why he removed them. We thought they just voluntarily rotated out. So actually he was duplicitous at that time, and now we're supposed to praise his duplicity because he got caught. And that's not logical. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a fine man. I'm sure as a veteran he's done wonderful things for this country, but he selected people from a particular law firm and from a particular profile.
Yeah, his firm.
Yes, his firm.
Like he didn't know these people.
When he started to do, you don't just pick Ben Rhodes' lawyer to be on your team. That doesn't make any sense when Ben Rhodes has been bragging that he had efforts to subvert the incoming administration by putting people in last-minute appointments. I'm sorry, it's a conflict of interest. He knew that.
No, that
so
Jeannie
the question is, why was he doing this? Why was he doing this? He was under a lot of pressure from the establishment to do this, and he's a part of the establishment, and he felt he was probably doing the establishment thing. But the establishment thing was the amoral and unethical thing, as we're starting to learn. And we're not learning it because he volunteered that information.
No, and that would have been bad in July if he announced it, but at least we would say, oh gosh, well, thank goodness he's at least removing these people, and we're really glad he told us. And then I suggested this last night, Victor, that there should at least be some pause in this investigation. The whole thing should be shut down, but there should be a pause in the investigation while each candidate for either a position there or who's already there is really vetted, because clearly they weren't vetted, or they were purposely picked for their political bias. I don't know which it is, but the taint is terrible.
Why would we think organs like Vox and the Daily Beast were bragging about an all-star team, and one headline said the all-star team that may take down Trump? Because they knew things that we didn't. They knew these people because they were in the so-called Washington establishment. So what they need to do is, you're right, they need to vet them, and they need to have an announcement that they're going to have parallel tracks of this investigation and investigate the dossier and the FISA orders and the leaking and unmasking in corroboration of whatever they're doing now, because they're hitting a dead end, and the word collusion's disappeared and been replaced by obstruction. So we're really sort of following the Scooter Libby paradigm, where you can't find someone for the charge that you were entrusted to investigate. So then you keep interrogating them to a point where you think that they've crossed themselves up.
Oh,
it's really scary what they're doing.
No, it's because if you have a limitless budget and an endless supply of partisan lawyers, then they will find something. This is not how the special counsel was ever supposed to work. The entire idea of a special counsel focused on investigating their ultimate boss, which is Donald Trump, the whole idea of that is ridiculous. It's a constitutional matter. Our framers never understood that should be the dynamic set up at our founding. It's not the way it ever should have gone. Victor, we're out of time, but thank you so much. If we don't talk to you, have a Merry Christmas. But maybe we'll have you on the Ingraham angle if you have time. Great to talk to you, as always. And by the way, you won't believe what's hitting the shelves at Walmart this Christmas. Oh, stay with us. I think we have to change the name of that song to Token Around the Christmas Tree. For the stoner who has everything, Walmart is selling a weed marijuana leaf Christmas tree this season. Well, at least until Wednesday afternoon when the retailer pulled the tree from its website. Though cookie cutter shapes shaped like marijuana leaves remain for sale on the site. Ornaments and bow not included. The 7-foot fake Tannenbaum, which has a street or retail value of $250. The pot leaf Christmas tree will light up the room and put your mind in the right headspace for holiday cheer. You'll be able to relax and giggle at the marijuana leaves and decorate it as you please. Oh my God, the world is coming to an end. More 8 and 12 and looks like 17-year-olds are smoking pot now. They're not doing other drugs, but they're smoking pot. That's going to do a lot for productivity. Great.
Your Healthy Radio Addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
You're leading me nowhere. Don't leave me this way.
Omarosa Manigault, she's leaving because General Kelly was tired of it. What I'm told, she asked General Kelly, well, does the president know? And General Kelly said, yes, the president signed off. She said, I wanted to call the president. And General Kelly said, this is not going to the principal's office. It's done. So once that piece stopped, a little later on, she tried to go see the president. She tried to go into the residence.
Oh, my goodness.
And mind you, General Kelly has cut off her access, walk-in access to go into the Oval Office and things of that nature. Security alerted General Kelly. He came back down, told Secret Service to take her out of there. Wow. She was escorted off the property.
Don't leave me this way.
That is April Ryan from Urban Radio, who has become, she's become kind of the bête noire of Sarah Huckabee and at the White House briefing. Very antagonistic, as most of the reporters are. That's fine. But she was telling this story about the White House aide, Omarosa Manigault, that she was escorted off the property by Secret Service. Secret Service has since said that never happened. Never happened. They didn't escort her out. They sent a tweet out, and they flashed it all over Fox this morning. That didn't happen. But nevertheless, this is... We actually keeps telling these stories to do what? I mean, there was obviously something happened. Who knows what happened? I don't know what happened. And this is all inside Washington staffing baseball here, but I'm only bringing it up because April Ryan's telling this story for a reason. Because she wants to paint the picture of a White House in total turmoil, right down to the fact that they have to walk a woman out of the White House who was trying to desperately reach the residence and talk to President Trump before she was terminated. And then, of course, the story that she can stay until January 20th. Who knows what the truth is? But she actually went on Good Morning America this morning. And let's play the first response, James, and then we'll play the part that's a little bit more troubling. But she kind of shot down the April Ryan tale. Let's listen.
One of the things that I'd ask of those people who are making those assertions, since they assert that I did it so publicly, is where are the pictures or videos? If I had confronted John Kelly, who is a very formidable person, it would garner enough attention for anyone in the room to at least take a picture or a video or something. The assertion that I would do that in front of 600 guests at a Christmas party and no one has reported that except for one individual who has a personal vendetta against me.
Personal vendetta against me. African-American woman, liberal, doesn't like an African-American conservative. Well, we've said this before, going back to the days of Justice Thomas and Tom Sowell, Walter Williams, Tim Scott in South Carolina, Condoleezza Rice. There's nothing that is more terrifying to liberals than a conservative minority. They can't stand the idea that one from their co-opted minority group would suddenly become a conservative or have any allegiance to Donald Trump or conservative ideals. That is contrary to their entire way of thinking. So the left has to destroy you. Though they tried to destroy Justice Thomas, he had life tenure. He ended up with life tenure on the Supreme Court. They either ignore people like Tom Sowell for decades. Now he's up there in age and he's essentially retiring from the media. Walter Williams, economist. People like Tim Scott, they kind of tolerate him, senator from South Carolina. They don't like him either. Niger Innis, oh, no, he doesn't count. He's not authentically black. They don't want to tolerate black or Hispanic conservatives. And if they exist, they're Uncle Toms or Uncle Tomases. That's what they are. They're not real. They're not authentic. You're a traitor to your ethnicity or race. And that's what April Ryan must think about Omarosa. How dare you go work at the White House? And that's what people like Mika Brzezinski obviously think about someone like Ivanka Trump or Melania. You're a traitor to your gender because you will not join us in the attempted destruction of your husband or father, or you're part and parcel of this problem. So you cannot be a woman and be a conservative, be a supporter of Trump's conservative populist agenda. You're not an authentic woman. You're not an authentic black. You're not an authentic Hispanic if you support his policies, period. The most intolerant people out there are those on the left who want a monopoly on various minority groups or other groups that are identified by gender or, of course, sexual orientation, any of the rest. You can't be gay and a conservative. Oh, gosh, the log cabin Republicans, oh, they're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Total nuts. But Omarosa did say something that, well, concerned me. Let's listen.
Armstrong Williams told the Washington Post you were unhappy with Trump's handling of Charlottesville and also his endorsement of Roy Moore. Is that true?
Because I am serving until the 20th, I have to be very careful about how I answer this. But when I have a chance to tell my story, Michael, quite a story to tell. As the only African-American woman in this White House, as a senior staff and assistant to the president, I have seen things that have made me uncomfortable, that have upset me, that have affected me deeply and emotionally, that has affected my community and my people. And when I can tell my story, it is a profound story that I know the world will want to hear.
Well, that's a big push for a book. And who knows? I mean, she has every right to write any book she wants, I guess. I mean, that's what she's going to do. That's what she's going to do. But this is just one more barricade for the president to clear, and you got to handle things the right way and try to do your best. And that's why I wrote Billionaire at the Barricades. The idea, they are barricades to progress. The barricades of the media you have to clear, the establishment. You got to sometimes disgruntled employees, all the rest. You got to clear barricade after barricade. Just keep going. Focus on the American people. Know that when you're trying to do good, stuff is going to be thrown at you. That's just the nature of the game. That's how politics works. You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction. We're going to be talking to Roger Stone. That should be interesting, about the Mueller probe, and maybe we'll talk Omarosa just for fun. A really interesting piece in the Washington Post about how Christians in the Middle East are actually really upset about the president's Jerusalem decision. And it might seem kind of counterintuitive, like, why are they upset? Why? Well, because now they believe they're going to be they're going to be targeted, more so than they already are. So Coptic Christians, the head of the Coptic Christian community in Egypt, extremely upset. Others, Mike Pence is set to go to Jerusalem, and he's facing a lot of criticism from the Christian community in the Middle East that has been completely, just hammered in some places, of course, like Iraq. Almost completely destroyed, demoralized, scattered. But we'll talk about that as well. We have a lot to get to on the Laura Ingraham Show. And also later on, we're going to talk to Congressman Jim Jordan, who tried to get answers yesterday from Rod Rosenstein, and I don't think he got much. Rosenstein is just in a defensive crouch, and he's going to defend Bob Mueller to the end. That's why someone like Rosenstein never should have been Deputy Attorney General. It's a huge mistake to appoint him. Huge mistake for him to appoint a special counsel. Idiotic from beginning to end. The family of that New York bombing suspect, I'll call him a suspect, is saying they knew nothing about his radicalization. They knew nothing about it, and any suggestion to the contrary is wrong. He did travel to Bangladesh in the fall. And earlier this fall, and we'll bring you more details on that. So we're learning more about how he became a threat to the United States as someone who came in here on chain migration as a nephew of someone who came in on a lottery system. Craziness. I love when the family members start complaining about their interrogation. Oh, please. 855-40-LAURA. Tavis Smiley from NPR, or public television, I guess. He's now under scrutiny and is suspended from his show that he produces on his own, allegations against him. He basically says, where's the due process? Well, all these liberal men, they should start coming on the Ingraham angle. I've invited a lot of them on. I've invited Harold Ford Jr. on, who was accused. I invited Tavis Smiley on. They should come on, and I will actually give them an opportunity to speak. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Remember, our dear friends at Food for the Poor and the children and the families that they represent so beautifully, so angelically. They need your help this Christmas season. I'm looking for 10 of you to give $2,500 each. And this is for people who can afford it. And a lot of you give away a lot of money every year. This is a great organization. 95% of all their money goes straight to services that help the poor. And that means food, clothing, clean water, and self-sustainability. I've seen it in action. I'm going to be, I hope, going with them down to Haiti in the early part of next year. And these are people who are, we think of poor in the United States. You think of poor in a whole new way when you go to a place like Guatemala or Haiti. And saving a life, if you can save a life at Christmas, think about that. That's feeling good about who you are and what you're doing. If you can give $50 or $250, so appreciated as well. But an amazing organization. And $25,000 donors, you get to host the last hour of the show with me. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing that. And so just call us at 855-40-LAURA. You want to be part of this great organization that is doing so much in 17 countries, right on our doorstep here in the United States. We just love the work they do. They're a great Christian faith-based organization, and they pair up with great faith-based organizations on the ground. Again, 855-40-LAURA. We want to hear from you. Should Bob Mueller step aside, or will that just delay the inevitable? 855-40-LAURA.
You know you make me wanna kick my heels up and throw my hands up and
Is that General Kelly confronted her. She was very vulgar, she was cursing, very animated.
They personally gain by continuing to advance these false narratives.
What do you tell those in the Democratic base that say, no, Mr. Chairman, they do want to talk impeachment? What do you say to them?
Well, I say to them, here's where we agree. This is the worst president perhaps in American history. This tax giveaway to wealthy people and very large corporations that don't need it is an abomination. The effort to backdoor repeal the Affordable Care Act is unconscionable. The culture of corruption in Washington, like there was in Alabama, is unbecoming the executive branch. There's no doubt about that.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. My friends, we have to get back to the basics in America. I mean, the absolute basics. The basics is we need a country with a growing economy. We can't spend beyond our means. We should control our borders. Who comes in, why they're coming in. There should be a need for people who come in except for true humanitarian circumstances where individuals can come here and live here and not work to undermine our basic values and our history. So that's part of what we need. That's part of what we need to do and we need to focus on. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us. Roger Stone is a political consultant, lobbyist. I guess he's going to join us at, I don't know, I can't read mine, so I guess he's coming on at 35 now, but he was going to come on now. I guess we'll push him off because we don't have a long enough segment, but I guess we'll get Roger to talk about the latest with the Mueller investigation and where the special counsel is taking this. But there are a lot of Republicans who are rushing forward and saying, oh, we can't. We positively can't. No way, can't ever call into question Bob Mueller. Bob Mueller is sacrosanct. Look, he was a Vietnam vet. He served with distinction as head of the FBI. I understand all that. But people who serve with distinction also can make mistakes, or they can be ill-suited to do a particular job at a particular time. Just because everything that happened before, most things that happened before are good, doesn't mean you didn't make a mistake in another job. So these Republicans are part of the problem, though, because they kept setting this thing up with Mueller from the very beginning, as Victor Davis Hanson said earlier, as this is the dream team. Bob Mueller has assembled the dream team. Yeah, it's a dream team if you're a Democrat activist who wants Trump out of office. It's a dream team. Yeah, you got Andrew Weissman, you got Jeannie Rhee, who worked for the Clinton Foundation, and also Ben Rhodes, the Deputy National Security Advisor for Obama. And you got Peter Strzok, who's texting his girlfriend about how he's going to develop some type of insurance policy to ensure that Trump doesn't get elected. Yeah, that is a dream team. That's absolutely a dream team. By the way, I told you I was going to bring you this story about how the New York bombing suspect in the Port Authority bombing, Akayed Ullah, a Bangladeshi who came here under chain migration, that his family members, under questioning, said that, that they didn't have any inkling that their son or their family member had any problem. Hours before Akayed Ullah is alleged to have stepped into the busy Manhattan subway passage, homemade pipe bomb strapped to his body with Velcro, his wife called him to wake him up. The telephone conversation Monday was brief and ordinary. Janatul Firdos did not detect any signs that her husband was upset or angry, nor did he say anything memorable. She told him to go to work, and she hung up. That's what she said. On Wednesday, he had his first brief court appearance. I always thought he was a good man, Firdos said Wednesday, speaking through the crack of the front door of her home in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So, his wife is in Bangladesh. I still consider him a good man. I never thought he could be involved in an incident like this. Ullah's wife and mother-in-law, who spoke to the Washington Post from behind a door with their faces covered, of course, said the incident in New York blindsided them. They said Ullah had shown no signs of being radicalized in phone conversations or on his recent visits to Dhaka. If I knew this was going to happen, would never have let him leave, said Mahfouza Akhtar, Ullah's mother-in-law. Surprised she's not already in the United States with the chain migration that I've seen. In a news conference Wednesday, counter-terror chief Manrul Islam said that Ullah's attempted attack was inspired by the writings and online sermons of a Bangladeshi cleric named Jasmuddin Rahmani, the spiritual leader of Ansarullah Bangla Team, ABT, a banned Bangladeshi terrorist organization. Rahmani is serving a 5-year prison term. Islam said that Firdos and her family had, under questioning, suggested that link, implying that they did have some inkling of his radicalization. So, our counterterrorism chief, the Bangladeshi counterterror chief, Manru Islam, he thinks that the wife knew something about this. That's interesting. Chain migration, lottery visa. We need more of this for sure. What a joke. Coming up, Roger Stone. Stay with us.
Chain migration is a disaster for this country, and it's going to end.
Hi, this is Ben Domenech, the host of the Federalist Radio Hour. We're a daily show coming to you 5 days a week from Washington, D.C., where we interview our nation's top journalists, politicians, authors, chefs, economists, entertainers, and more. If you're looking for a contrarian discussion on news, politics, or culture, give us a listen and subscribe at podcastone.com, the new Podcast One app, or at Apple Podcasts.
Won't you tell us what it means? Still at the end of the hard day, people find some reason to believe.
Have you seen good cause to fire Special Counsel Mueller?
No.
Thank you. If you were ordered today to fire Mr. Mueller, what would you do?
As I've explained previously, I would follow the regulation. If there were good cause, I would act. If there were no good cause, I would not.
And you've seen no good cause so far?
Correct.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Rod Rosenstein, Deputy Attorney General, circling the wagons for Bob Mueller, despite all of these revelations of bias and, at the very least, an appearance of conflict of interest or a real conflict of interest on the part of these investigators. I'm a little under the weather, so excuse my voice. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us, Roger Stone, Republican political consultant, pal of the president, and a political strategist. He joins us now. Roger, I've been dying to talk to you about the latest with the Strzok text to his paramour, the insurance policy that they needed to ensure that Donald Trump didn't become president, and yet we have Republicans who are still defending the honor and integrity and the veracity and the legitimacy of this special counsel investigation.
Well, as you know, Laura, the regulations provide that even the appearance of a conflict of interest would be tantamount to removal. Would require that Mr. Mueller step down. What we have here is a get Trump squad, a nakedly partisan effort to get the president at all costs. Between the campaign contributions to Democrats by Mueller's staff, these stunning texts. The conflicts are rife, but I really, going back to a conversation you and I had some time ago, I don't believe the president should now fire Mueller. I once believed that. I believe the president should insist on the appointment of a special counsel to investigate Uranium One. Mr. Mueller would come under that investigation, as would Mr. Comey and Mr. Rosenstein and Mr. McCabe, in which case they would all have to step down because of the conflict. You can't be investigating the president when you yourself are under investigation for corruption.
Well, and I think that when you have people like Jeannie Rhee and Andrew Weissman, anything that this investigation produces in the way of negative conclusions about Trump, I think is tainted. You know, you have fruit of the poisonous tree. It all has the taint of a witch hunt and an agenda-driven campaign to undo the election results. I know that sounds over the top to people, but I've never seen a group of lawyers who are less suited to do an objective, calling balls and strikes, truth-seeking job than this group that they've assembled, this so-called dream team. Never seen it before.
Well, and at the same time, while I'm sure the president's lawyers are able gentlemen, this is a political proceeding. This is not a legal proceeding. Mueller is going to create some process-oriented crime if he has to, perjury, obstruction, that has nothing to do with Russia. The only two people in the world who don't seem to understand this are the president's two lawyers. I just don't think they understand the enmity that Trump has generated among the political class and the people who've been running this country for the last 30 years, into the ground, by the way, and their resolve to undo the results of the last election. Yesterday, I spoke to a reporter from Vanity Fair, and I told him I was going to write a book about the coup, about the takedown of the president. That got reported today, as Stone is writing a book about the downfall of the president. Well, I'm hoping his downfall isn't inevitable. I'm hoping he saves himself, and this book has a happy outcome. But right now, I have no doubt whatsoever that the president's lawyers they're sleepwalking him to the gallows. They're creating a false sense of security while Mueller's team is intent in taking out our leader in a coup, a political coup.
Yeah, it's a slow rolling coup, Roger. And what I want to kind of move on to talk about the general mood of the electorate, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. My sense is that the president has good instincts on politics. I mean, not good, great instincts on politics. And he knows that going into 2018, we need a happier electorate. We need an electorate that is more optimistic, more confident. We see some of that in the polls of consumer confidence. But we want things to calm down a little bit. And the calmer he is and the more optimistic he is, even in the face of all this CRAP they're throwing at him, I think the more frenetic and pathetic the other side looks. And I know it's his instinct to smash back, and it works. It usually works well to smash back at every instance of unfairness. But sometimes your enemies undo themselves on their own with very little effort on your part. And I'm wondering if it may be time to drop some of the politics of anger and really just focus on the American people. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Well, nothing would help the president or the Republican Party so much as a strong and vibrant economy. That's why this tax cut is so vitally important. That's why the regulations that they have really slashed and the resultant improvement in the stock market, drop in unemployment, boom in the housing market, these are all positive signs. It's been somewhat subtle so far. It will really pick up if the tax cuts are enacted. There's a lot of sweeteners in there for Wall Street I'm not crazy about, but the cut in rates, I guess, are pretty much worth it. If the president can stay focused on that ball, then I do think that we could be in very good shape. I think it's funny to watch established Republicans running around like chickens with their heads cut off just because we nominated a terrible candidate in Alabama who ran a terrible campaign. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll lose the 2018 elections. 2018 is light years away from now. But I agree with you. I think a calmer, more constructive approach, a boom economy, and the Democrats may be counting their chickens way, way too early. On the other hand, I have no doubt that if the Democrats were to take the House in 2018, that Mueller will serve them up some pretext for impeachment, some pretext for removal. So it's a dangerous game.
And they are, by hook or by crook, they hope to do that, Roger. And you see that there are a couple of different strains that they're following. Number one is the Mueller investigation. Number two, the accusers being trotted out again as they were in October of 2016. Megyn Kelly has 3 one day, 1 the next. Democrats like clockwork dump Franken overboard so they can move forward. Now we have 100 Congress persons, I guess that's what we have to call them, who are now urging Trump to step aside. And so you got all that. You got the accusers, you got Mueller, and you have the overall argument that Trump is somehow suffering from dementia. It's all the politics of personal destruction. There is no substantive argument going on right now in the Democrat Party. None. It's just destroy, destroy, destroy.
I have no doubt that if Mueller were to shoot and miss, if the president were to dodge that particular bullet, well, then we're going to move to Plan B, which is a 25th Amendment takedown. He's crazy. He's insane. He's non-compass mentis. I've talked to him. He's sharp as a tack. He's exactly the way he's been since I've known him, and I've known him 40 years. I detect no change. He's really on his game. So this is a manufactured pretext, a fallback for the establishment. Can't get him through the Mueller thing. They'll try to get him in a 25th Amendment takeout. They're just not going to stop. He's going to have to persevere. He's going to have to beat them. You're right. An uptick in the economy and a continued leadership, as we've seen, is the real answer. And frankly, thank God for Fox News, because they've done an extraordinary job of bringing out the facts about the Mueller probe that you won't read in the New York Times.
Yeah, we broke the story on Jeannie Rhee that she represented Ben Rhodes before the House Intel Committee. The only reason that she actually didn't appear with him in that closed-door session was that she had by then already started working for Mueller. She was setting up the meetings, and she was calling over there. I worked for the Clinton Foundation, but now I'm representing Rhodes. And my gosh, they all represent each other. It's the most incestuous group of people. They always like to talk about the Federalist Society, Roger, but my goodness, there's like 5 Democrats who run the whole legal show in Washington, as far as I could tell.
Well, we learned from the FISA court way back in November that they essentially used the spy apparatus of the U.S. government to conduct political espionage on 30,000 Americans, most of them Republicans, a total abuse of power. But they pay no price. Rhodes, Clapper, Brennan, Rice, et al. I mean, you're right. It's a small circle, and they are deeply committed to trying to undo what they couldn't do at the ballot box. It's stunning, and it's now becoming clearer every day to the American people.
Roger, we're kind of having a hard time hearing you, so stay right on that microphone.
Yep.
I want you to listen to something that a presidential aide, someone who people know well, Omarosa Manigault, said today on the Good Morning America show when she was asked about her departure from the White House and what she saw at the White House. It sounds like a bit of a threat. Let's listen.
Is that true?
You know, because I am serving until the 20th, I have to be very careful about how I answer this. But when I have a chance to tell my story, Michael, quite a story to tell. As the only African-American woman in this White House, as a senior staff and assistant to the president, I have seen things that have made me uncomfortable, that have upset me, that have affected me deeply and emotionally, that has affected my community and my people. And when I can tell my story, it is a profound story that I know the world will want to hear.
Your reaction to that, Roger?
Playing the race card. Look, Omarosa, for reasons that are unbeknownst to me, persuaded the president to send a delegation to the inauguration of the new regime in Haiti. The regime in Haiti is the same old regime that raped that country with the assistance of the Clintons in the aftermath of the earthquake. They had to go through 2 elections. They finally stole one sufficiently to be installed. It's the same old corrupt group that have raped that country and stolen all of the earthquake money. Omarosa is not a conservative. She's not a Republican. She doesn't understand the Trump agenda. And the president shouldn't be sending delegations to any inauguration. That's the State Department's job with the approval of the president. So in my view, she's a bad actor. She is unhappy with the fact that they wouldn't let her have her wedding reception in the Rose Garden, so she went ahead and did it anyway. Showed up with 39 guests unannounced to romp in the Rose Garden. No, I think it was time for her to go, and she hasn't served this president well, and now, angry about being fired, she's playing the race card. She wasn't fired because she's black. She's fired because she's incompetent.
Yeah, the disgruntled employee syndrome. You know, most people who've hired people know that deal. When you don't get what you want, then you file a lawsuit or express some grievance. The question though is why was she ever brought into the White House? She's always been nice to me. I don't know her very well. She's always been perfectly nice to me. But today on Morning Joe, Mike Barnacle said, "Well, what was her qualification for going to work in the White House?" I mean, I don't know. Maybe she had some great business experience. I don't. But why was she brought in?
It's an extraordinary question. I mean, largely, I guess, because she had a personal relationship with the president going back to 2004.
Her race had nothing to do with it? I mean, her race...
Well, probably a factor,
diversity.
Certainly. But then I have to ask myself, how did any of the people in the Trump White House get there? None of them supported Donald Trump.
That's a great point. At least she supported him, Roger. I mean, a lot of these people were Rubio people.
Or Bush people, more likely. No, she at least campaigned for him, which is more than you can say for most of the people.
That's a great point.
In the Trump White House.
No, that's actually a really good point.
Hard to know what the criteria is. In the end, I openly fear that this is going to be a problem. The president has not surrounded himself with loyalists. He surrounded himself with establishment Republicans and, frankly, a disproportionate number of Bush people. Neocons and so on.
Yeah, Roger, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. Even though your connection is not great, I'm getting you a new cell phone for Christmas. Hope to see you soon. Roger Stone, thank you so much. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. Great Ingraham Angle show on tap tonight. Make sure to DVR us if you're out. And what do you do for a sore throat and constant congestion? Drip, drip, drip. What is your home remedy? I need it. Don't go away. By the way, guys, it turns out that Skirball fire near the Getty Center in the L.A. area, that terrible fire that did so much damage, it was started by a homeless encampment. A stove that was used by a number of homeless individuals caught fire in the brush, caught the brush on fire, and then it just completely got out of control. Isn't it amazing how they can figure out how fires start? I'm fascinated by that. The fire department, how they do. I just find that, and you have like thousands of acres burned, and they can figure out that it was a stove somewhere and exactly where it was. But we'll learn more about that, I'm sure. But homelessness in the United States, and we're still bringing people in who are illiterate and have no ability to support themselves.
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Podcast One has new shows on our new app. Check out all the cool features to help you explore our exciting new programming, like America's Lakers podcast with Jay Moore, Sessions with Randy Jackson, So Random with Corinne Olympios, Attack Each Day, The Harbaugh's podcast, Not Just Sports with Susie Schuster and Rich Eisen, and Sound of Success, the Dick Enberg podcast, as well as your old favorites like The Lady Gang, Steve Austin, Shaquille O'Neal, and Adam Carolla. Get the new Podcast One app in the App Store, Google Play, or PodcastOne.com.